I am Olivia Reiner. We are live here at Soldier Field after the Packers-Bears game. Packers win their final game of the regular season to secure the top seed in the NFC and a first-round bye, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, all the good stuff. We will head over to Facebook in just a moment to take some of your questions, plus we'll also wrap up what you need to take away from today's game in just a moment. As I just mentioned, before we get into that today, you can always be a part of our conversation. Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube, leave a question down in the chat. Ryan and I want to hear from you. We'll get to some of your thoughts toward the end of our conversation today. The Packers are first round bye winners. They have secured the top seed in the NFC. Ryan, how challenging was it for the Packers to get to where they are now after having gone through, a pandemic? They're without their starting left tackle and everything else that put the season into perspective.
I mean, I guess the thing that stood out the most to me is that 4 months ago, when this team started its delayed training camp in the middle of August, you would have said the most irreplaceable player on this team is obviously Aaron Rodgers, but number 2 would be David Bakhtiari. Like, the one guy there is just simply not a replacement for on this entire roster. His name is David Bakhtiari and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, those are the two guys. And what they just did, they scored touchdowns on 5 of their 7 full drives. They dropped 35 points on a very good Chicago Bears team that was ranked 9th in points, 11th in yards coming in, and a Bears team that needed to win to get in. Now, they got in because Arizona lost to the Rams, but a win and they're in. So they had everything to play for, just like the Packers. They dropped 35 points without David Bakhtiari on the road against this defense. It's got to breathe new life into the aspirations for this team that, hey, yeah, David Bakhtiari is going to be missed. There's no question about that. But look what they just did. They can do that. This offense, this defense, I don't know about the special teams, but they've got a team that can go a long way.
Quarterback Aaron Rodgers finished the game 19 of 24 passing, 240 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, almost very, very, very close to a perfect passer rating. Where does Aaron Rodgers stand in the MVP race after tonight's game?
Davante Adams said he locked it up today, and you know what? It's hard to see it any other way after Patrick Mahomes didn't play Week 17. This was going to be a photo finish, but when one of the two doesn't finish, that makes it a little easier. And Aaron Rodgers was virtuoso. Again, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He dominated. He should have had a 5th touchdown too. Marquez Valdes-Scantling dropped it. It was really impressive. And again, I just go back to, he had Billy Turner at left tackle. Billy Turner played phenomenal. I know he had the one holding. He played phenomenal. The guy that was a starting right guard last year slides it in and plays left tackle again. And Rick Wagner at right tackle. I think that maybe they hurt a little bit more David Bakhtiari's absence in the run game than the passing game. But in the passing game, the protection was there and the quarterback delivered.
Wide receiver Davante Adams was not a typical stellar night. We've grown so accustomed to seeing Davante Adams put up crazy yardage, multiple touchdowns. He had 6 receptions for about 46 yards and a touchdown tonight. However, that one touchdown was enough to put him over the tower. He tied wide receiver Sterling Sharp's record set in 1994, single season touchdown franchise high. How did Davante Adams get to this point after especially missing 2 games this season?
Well, he also had the catch record, 115 to break Sterling Sharp's 112 in 1993. The year before, he had the 18 touchdowns. The fact is that Davante Adams had the touchdowns and he had the catches in the same year. Aaron Rodgers said that he talked to Davante Adams after the game. He went up to him and he said, 13 and a half games. That's what you needed to get the greatest receiving season in Packers history. And now, I think that can be debatable. To me, Don Hutson's 1942 season, go look it up. Go look at the receiving league leaders in 1942. It's basically like Babe Ruth in the 20s with home runs. Don Hutson, what he did in 1942, I don't think that'll ever be surpassed. But certainly it's the most prolific. He's got the catch record. He's got the 18 touchdowns, 115 catches. For him to do that in 13 and a half games, it's stunning to think about. And, there's always going to be the what if he could have played 16 games, could he have gotten the yards, but it's stunning to think what he did in 13 and a half games.
Mm-hmm. Now let's go over to our friend over on Facebook, Craig from Alberta. Good to see you, Craig. Craig says that it was good to see former Bear Adrian Amos, the safety, throw the dagger with the fourth quarter pick on quarterback Mitch Trubisky. This defense was able to stand really strong. Not only did Adrian Amos have the pick, there were a number of pass breakups. Kevin King had a really strong night. Plus, the Packers defense was only 1 of 5 in the red zone. They only allowed the Bears to score on 1 of their 5 trips down there. What did tonight's game do for the confidence of this Packers defense heading into the playoffs?
That's the thing, Olivia. They've got a defense. They're bringing a defense into the playoffs with this offense. The fact is, the special teams put them in really bad spots twice to start the game. The kickoff that was out of bounds, and a really savvy play by Cordero Patterson to get out of bounds and then touch the football. But the ball should have never been that close to the sideline to begin with, so that's a short field right off the bat. That's the lone touchdown that they had. And then the fumble punt return by Tavon Austin gives the ball to the Bears at the 20. For them, the Packers defense was 1 of 4, held the Bears to 1 of 4 tonight in the red zone. For them to force a field goal after getting the ball at the 20, it's impressive. And that's winning football, winning defense in the postseason. They're getting takeaways. They're doing all and let's not forget, this is the Bears offense that had scored 30 points in 4 straight games coming into tonight. So they'd been hot, and then they ran up against this Packers defense. They're at least as good as defensively as they were at the end of last season. Probably the best they've been defensively since 2015. That year they didn't have the offense to do it. They've got the offense to do it this year. That's why there's a lot of excitement. You got to wonder about the special teams again, but that's why there's a lot of excitement, rightly so, amongst fans for this team, that they can go a long way.
Let's continue over on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube with some of your questions. We started with Craig. Let's continue with Josh over on Facebook. Good to see you tonight, Josh. Josh says that they're disappointed that running back A.J. Dillon didn't play. He thinks that he is better than running back Jamal Williams. The Packers welcome back Jamal Williams to the lineup tonight after he dealt with a quad injury this past week that kept him out of the game against the Tennessee Titans. The Packers struggled on the ground tonight. They were held to under 100 rushing yards. A.J. Dillon only touched the ball once tonight. Why couldn't the Packers get anything going on the ground?
Well, the difference between today and Week 12 was the Bears did not have Akeem Hicks Week 12. And so Week 12, the Packers they're staring at a big vacancy in the middle of the field, because that's where Hicks usually is. They had 39 carries, 180 yards on the ground. Tonight they had 19 carries. They had about 80 yards on the ground. They need to run the football more. There's no question about this. This offense is at its best, and I know they scored 35 points and they had a lot of touchdowns. They're at its best when they're running the football and the run game is leading the way. They've got to find more than 19 carries out there. There's no question about that. With that said, a lot of that you got to give it to the Chicago Bears. It's a very good defensive front, and they really did take away the running game. And like I said, David Bakhtiari has the reputation, and well-earned, as the best pass blocker in the NFL. That's what you think of when you think all-pro left tackle. But the gains that he'd made these past 2 seasons with Adam Stenavich as a run blocker, specifically in that outside zone, he'd become a really good run blocker. And I think that they did miss him, probably even more than they did in pass protection. They missed David Bakhtiari a lot in the run game.
Let's continue on our conversation about the offense with a question here from Chris. Chris says, that is the beauty of this offense. You never know who is going to be the star week to week, and that's what makes the Packers dangerous. Aaron Rodgers had 8 different receivers tonight, including undrafted free agent tight end Dominique Daphne, who scored his first touchdown of his NFL career on his 2nd career catch. How will the depth of the Packers offense help propel them through the playoffs?
Yeah, how about when we all thought, and you thought too, don't lie, you thought it too, it's not just us, when we all thought that this team had no playmakers. 12 players caught a touchdown this season for the Packers. Nobody saw that coming, except maybe the guys inside Lambeau Field. I mean, look, there's a reason why Brian Gutekunst wasn't desperate to go draft a receiver. Dominic Daphne, for him to go out in a game like this and get a touchdown is huge. What about Marquez Valdes-Scantling? He's going to finish this season with, I think, 690 yards, right about 700 yards. He's the first Packers receiver in almost 30 years, or more than 30 years, almost 35 years, to have 30 catches and average 20 yards per catch. Leads the league in yards per catch this season. It's not just Davante Adams. Robert Tonyan sets Paul Kaufman's 1983 record for most tight ends caught by touchdowns caught by a tight end in Packers single-season history with 11. It's not just Davante Adams. Davante Adams is Davante Adams, but there's a wealth of depth there.
Let's flip it over to the special teams. We got some of you in the chat right now. Listen, a lot of good to take away from this game. a lot of not so good, and most of that not so good comes from the Packers special teams units. Let's go to Tao first. Tao says, has wide receiver and kick return specialist Malik Taylor replaced running back / wide receiver / punt return specialist Tavon Austin on special teams. Austin had what could have been a costly fumble on a punt return. However, the Packers defense was able to hold strong in the red zone and didn't allow the Bears to score a touchdown. Where does Tavon Austin stand right now after tonight's fumble?
Well, they went right back to him with a 7-yard catch the very next play. So it's not don't just leap on Tavon Austin. The reality is when you have a bad phase, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, when you have a bad phase, and right now this special teams unit is a bad phase for this team, it's something else, it's something different, it's someone different every single week. It's not just one thing. And it was like that again today. Tavon Austin has been no problem at all. He has the fumble punt return. That just adds to the issue. The kickoff out of bounds to start the game, give him a short field, a terrible way to start things off. That adds to the issue. It's something different every week. And it reminds me so much, Olivia, of 2014. I mean, in 2014, they had the offense. Aaron Rodgers was MVP. They had the defense. They had the bookends with Clay Matthews, with Julius Peppers. They had the defense and the offense in 2014. They did not have the special teams. It was not just Brandon Bostic that year. It was the entire season. Breakdowns in the coverage game, on kicks, missed extra points, block, punt. It was the entire special teams all season, and it's been the same way this year. And if they don't figure something out, this team that should very well be going to the Super Bowl, it could cost them a trip. They've seen that happen before.
We've got a question here from Johnny. Johnny says that on the very first play of the game, when kicker Mason Crosby started with the opening kickoff, he kicked the ball. The refs ruled it out of bounds because return specialist Cordero Patterson had his foot out of bounds when he touched the ball. The refs ruled that it was in fact out of bounds, that he did touch the ball while his foot was out of bounds. However, Johnny seems to think that Patterson was not yet out of bounds when the ball was kicked in bounds. What was your take on that call?
I think the Bears think that Cole Kmet was down by contact before Jair Alexander ripped the football out, and Rashawn Gary recovered it for a really big play by the defense. The reality is that on both those plays, they were too close to call. The call in the field is going to stand. I thought it was really, really close. No question, I thought it was really, really close. I also didn't think it could possibly get overturned because there's no definitive look at that. You can't tell me that you could definitively freeze the frame when he's touching the football and seeing where he's out of bounds based on the angles you got. I saw them all. I didn't see it. And I felt the same way about the Bears fumble that Jair Alexander forced. Those plays are just not going to get overturned. There's plenty to look at. I would bystep the close calls like that.
Steve over on Facebook wants to know, who is the team that the Packers want to play in the divisional round? The Packers have the only bye in the NFC due to the reconfigured playoff situation this season. So the Packers will be off this upcoming week, and then they will rejoin the pack as one of 8 teams in the hunt for the Super Bowl. Who in the NFC do the Packers most want to see coming in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think the team they don't want to see is a team with a really good defensive front that can take away the run game. And oh, by the way, 4 of the top 5 rush defenses in the NFL are NFC playoff teams. The Bucks, the Saints, the Rams, I believe the Seahawks. 4 of the top 5 run defenses in the NFL are NFC playoff teams. That's going to be rough. I mean, can they stay committed to the run game and still get production so that defenses have to fear the run enough for the play action pass to be as explosive as it can be with this offense? If they have a good defense that makes them be patient with it, it doesn't get run over like the Carolina Panthers did a few weeks ago right from the gate. That's a big question with this team, and they're going to face a team like that. So I think certainly the Bucks. I think the Bucks. I haven't seen anything new on Mike Evans' knee situation, so I don't know if that's serious or not because that happened. I didn't see anything during the game, but the Bucks, I would think, with that defensive front, Tom Brady, we know he can play in the cold. That would be a team that I would think they would. And Russell Wilson can wreck a season. He can get hot and just wreck a season. He's that kind of player. bottom line, though, is that the Packers are the 1 seed, and that's because they're the best team in the conference on paper. I mean, they've earned that. They're the only team that's 13-3, and it's going to be interesting to see if the matchups go right.
We'll go over to our friend Eric on Facebook. Eric wants to know, how do you think defensive lineman Damon Harrison played in his limited role? The Packers elected to bring in Harrison on short yardage scenarios, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. The Bears found themselves in that scenario quite a few times tonight. How did Harrison play on those types of short yardage situations?
It's tough to tell without seeing the film, just to be honest with you. It's because a lot of times your eyes are following the ball when it's live. And that's why you hear coaches all the time say, got to see the film, because they got to see the film. I thought it was impressive that he played as much as he did. I mean, think about Anthony Rush, how long it took, and he's back on the practice squad now, but how long it took Anthony Rush to find, anything, to be active. It took him a couple weeks. Snacks Harrison just got here a couple days ago, and he's already on the field. So there's no question, if you're wondering if there's a role for Snack Harrison, is he going to be a healthy scratch? There's no question he's going to have a role in this team, and it started today.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a question here from... We've got a lot of people asking about the run game, including Todd. Todd says that the Packers consistently need to stop the run too. Bears running back David Montgomery, who coming into this game had the 5th most rushing yards in the league, right behind running back Aaron Jones. He had, 69 yards on the ground, plus almost another 80 or so in the passing game as well. How do the Packers head into the playoffs now, and what position are they in to handle some of the more talented running backs that they'll face?
Well, the reality is the Bears were, David Montgomery had 7 carries on the opening drive. I don't know what he ended with, Olivia, but it was very obvious that they were intent on getting him the ball. And anytime, just like Derrick Henry, the Packers a week ago did a tremendous job on Derrick Henry, 98 yards. You got that on 23 carries. You get 23 carries, you're going to have some yards. It was the same with David Montgomery. He had a lot of carries, he's going to have some yards. I get that the memories of last year's NFC Championship game are not going to fade. Just like the memories of getting blown out in Atlanta, or the onside kick, are not, or Brett Favre's interception, are not going to fade. When you lose a game of that magnitude, the reason you lost the game does not fade. So I get that run defense is going to be in the back of your mind. The reality is, you look at the last couple weeks, this Packers run defense is markedly better, much better than they were a year ago. This Packers run defense has been balling out. Has it been perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect, but it's been a lot better. It's been good enough. It's cleared that hurdle with substantial room to spare. So, I get it. You're always going to be nervous, but it's been a lot better.
The Packers are headed into the bye week, but don't worry, we are not yet saying bye to all of you. We'll be back later this week to get you all squared away for the upcoming weeks as the Packers eye a deep playoff run and what they hope will end in a Super Bowl. For Ryan Wood, I am Olivia Reiner.